Madam Mayor, members of the council, earlier this evening in the consent agenda, you approved two items related to the Hatley Way sidewalk improvements. One of those was a right-of-way dedication from the University of Idaho to the city of Moscow, and the second was a maintenance agreement between the city and the university that essentially stated that the university would not be responsible for maintenance and upkeep of the sidewalk that the city is contemplating construction within that newly dedicated right-of-way. It's the Hatley Way project. It was something that we looked at last fall, and we actually had taken a project out to bid last fall. In the end, we determined there were some questions with respect to the maintenance agreement, and the agreement and the right-of-way dedication were tabled up until this evening. The other part, with respect to the actual construction, we went out to bid last fall. The prices were higher than we liked, so we rejected the bids with the idea that we would come back and rebid it later this year. So during that time, Bill primarily has taken the lead in working with the university and the mall ownership representatives to discuss the issue of snow removal along the frontage of the mall and what will become a new section of sidewalk that the city would construct with the Hatley Way project. So it's been a fairly long process. I think it was successfully handled in that Bill was able to work with all the parties involved and really come to an agreement and a recognition of some of the previous agreements that were put in place back in 2003, wherein the mall ownership had agreed that they would perform the maintenance for snow removal and those types of activities along their frontage, that they would, in essence, allow the public usage of what is, in essence, a private sidewalk on their property, or on actually university property, along the front of the mall for public purposes. So that was readdressed, I guess, during those discussions over the last number of months, and reaffirmed that, yes, the walkway that runs along the front of the mall, even though it's on private property, university property, is available for public use in conformance with those previous agreements. And the mall reconfirmed that, yes, they would do the snow removal operations along that walk that's on their property that serves the public. They also agreed that they would extend that snow removal operation to include the new area of Hatley Way sidewalk that we would be constructing under the Hatley Way project. All that worked great, so essentially resolved all of those issues that we had identified last fall, which is then why you saw the dedication and the maintenance agreement earlier this evening. Along with that discussion, though, there was a request by the mall representatives that we consider adding the private sidewalk that's being used publicly along the face of the mall to a snow routes program. And if you'll recall, when we, a couple years ago, after we'd had some of the larger snow events in 2007 and 8, we talked quite a bit about our snow operations and what could we do to perhaps improve the service that we were providing to the citizens of the city. And one of the things that came out of that was the concept of a snow route designation. So this map on the screen represents the snow routes that were identified as of October of 2009. The driving force behind the snow routes was the idea that we would provide, at first, a vehicular route that's within a reasonable proximity to all the residences and businesses in the city that would receive some priority with respect to removing snow along the street. Somewhat of a secondary discussion that followed not too long thereafter and developed over the course of the following year was the idea that we should also extend that prioritization for snow removal to the other modes of transportation, primarily being pedestrians on the sidewalk system. So out of that discussion back in 2009 and 10 timeframe came the program that the Parks Department administers to go out and remove snow from the sidewalks that are on these designated snow routes as resources become available. And that last little caveat's very important because we have never said that the responsibility for snow removal is being taken away from those adjacent property owners. They still are responsible for removing snow and all maintenance associated with sidewalks in front of their parcels of land, even though they're on a snow route. But the way we have presented it and the way I think that the Parks Department has applied the program has been that once they have completed their other snow removal duties, be it a city parking lot here or portions of the Paradise Path that are being plowed, as the opportunity and the resource allows, they would eventually get out and plow those sidewalks along these snow routes. And so that has been the program since October of, well, really the winter of 2009 and 10, and the way we've been operating. In some cases, we get there first. In a lot of cases, the property owner gets there first, and they clear their walks. So with that,
But in the end, they're totally plowed.
nope.
No?
They should be, though.
In the end, the property owner is still responsible for them being cleared,
Okay?
okay? And at times, our crews get out there and clear them. But that is not always the case. So there are probably times that, through whatever reasons, and Dwight can answer this better than I can, whether or not his crew actually gets out on every snow event. Okay?
They may run out of day.
They may run out of day.
No, my concern is that whoever the contract is that clears the Palouse Mall parking lot puts the snow on that sidewalk. And I walk it every Thursday. So I'm climbing over piles of snow on that sidewalk. And I don't know, that's the problem that
Things
needs
must
solving.
get you.
Not taking snow off of it, putting snow on it.
And that
And then it's
was,
frozen solid and no amount of snow brushing dynamite isn't going to take that out.
and my understanding from discussions with Bill was that was a topic of discussion that he held with the mall, and they agreed that, yes, they had been doing some of that, and that they would remedy or modify their operations so that they did not pile that snow onto that sidewalk, recognizing the fact that people do use it and that it should be maintained. And that was part of the agreement back in 2003, was that if that's going to act as that public route, then it needs to be kept open as a public route. So that is what, again, that's been reaffirmed, and they've said that they would modify their operations so that that should not happen.
Most people walk inside the mall, so, in the winter.
It looked like Tim had a question down
Or
here,
would
Les.
walk outside if they didn't have to climb over the Alps.
Tim, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did.
For Les?
Les, you had mentioned during your presentation that this was private property. And so my question is, do we do this anywhere else in the city? Most of the snow routes that I looked at when you had that previous slide up indicated that it was city right-of-way, although it was a sidewalk.
Yes, the snow routes are all city streets. And so if we're doing sidewalk work on the snow routes up till this date, they're all public walks located within public street right-of-way. This would be a bit of a change from that.
This would
in
set a
that
precedent.
This is on University of Idaho property, not city property. What maybe makes this one a bit different, and why I think it should be considered, is the fact that through past agreements, walk that would have been constructed in the street right-of-way, which belongs to ITD in this case, the requirement was removed with the understanding that the walk that is on the U of I property would serve in lieu of a publicly owned sidewalk. Okay.
And can I continue?
Yes, please.
As I recall, when that design for that sidewalk, which would begin, the new sidewalk, which would begin on the west end of the mall property and eventually get to the Walmart property, it has to drop down into the state of Idaho right-of-way. It comes closer to the street in order to create a softer grade, and then swings around the corner and across Hatley Way.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to see here in the exhibit, and I don't, if I can borrow somebody's pointer. I don't think
Yeah, the little dip to the south. Is that
This
that
is
little dip
U-Haul
taken
right
out of-
here. This is U-Haul in this location.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And so the mall property ends essentially right there, and you can see that little kind of a U shape right in there. That's the section that you're talking about where the new Hatley Way sidewalk would diverge from the existing U of I mall sidewalk, drop southerly into the ITD right-of-way, State Highway 8 right-of-way, and then eventually would catch what is a portion of the Hatley Way city right-of-way, and then cut back north and go west along the frontage of U-Haul. So there is a portion of it that would be ramped down right through there that is on ITD right-of-way.
And then the area going across Hatley Way would also be city.
City. Yes.
So we've got a little island kind of there.
Well, and the Hatley Way extends all the way up to here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so this whole section is city right-of-way, Hatley Way. And the U of I dedication today gave us a little bit more right along their southwest corner so that that north-south chunk could be constructed on city right-of-way. But yeah, the ramp portion, that little east-west slope right there is in ITD
Okay,
right-of-way.
thank you.
Tom?
Well, I just was linking a couple of things that I heard Sue and Les say, and that is that, you know, with Sue talking about walking through there, the snow gets piled up on the walkway. I think that happens in a lot of places where the vehicle plowing happens first, and then we go back and do the pedestrian plowing, which is what I heard happens with the snow routes. First do the vehicle, or at least we were at least in consideration, first clearing the vehicle routes, and then the other modes of transportation, the pedestrian and so forth. I think what happens is that the snow gets piled up, you know, pushed to the right, and it turns into an ice block. It would be not
Private contractor.
right. Well, and that's a private contract to the mall. So I'm talking about, you know, the big plows that are going down State Highway 8. If we could clear those differently than just shoving them into the bike lane or onto the sidewalk, you know, that would be a good way of doing that if we could do that. Now, is there, I mean, it's a different, I mean, it's a bigger issue than just
Sure.
dealing with this walkway here, but I would like us to figure out how we can do that at some point.
And that is a particular challenge in snow operations in some of these roadways, and east of here is a good example of that. You have a travel lane adjacent to a bicycle lane,
Right.
adjacent to a walkway. So where does the snow end up?
Right.
And if you try to take it past the sidewalk, now you're on private property, so that's problematic.
Yeah, I'd
So
rather
it's
push it
gotta
into the
go
middle.
somewhere.
I like the way we push it into the middle in other parts, so if we could do that again.
And on this stretch, what we
State
try
Highway
to do
8.
is we try to push it to the south, actually.
Right.
all the way
Yeah,
across.
yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Wayne?